Hey everyone, it is late at night and I'm Norman. So last week I told you guys the story of how I got my job, but I didn't finish the very end of it, and a lot of you were curious to hear that story. So tonight I'm going to tell that little bit of it because it is pretty wild. At least it was experiencing it. However, unlike the previous video I did, this one is going to circle back to watches because I have something to put forth and could use some audience participation. So we'll do that at the end of this video. If you haven't seen my previous video about my job, you can catch up if you want to. The link to that is in the show notes below. But in that video, I discussed how I quit doing all the things that you're supposed to do when you're job hunting, because I figured everyone's doing that. Like I said, I had a job coach for a little while, so I thought I had a leg up. I did not. Everyone has the same information. They're all doing the same things. They're tailoring resumes. They're using AI. They're networking on professional social media, doing all the things. Everyone is. So you're just another face in the crowd if you're doing the things you're supposed to do. So I decided to just flood my resume everywhere. Just get it out there all over the place. And shortly after doing that, I think it was just a couple weeks, I ended up getting 2 interviews. Now, the sequence of events is kind of blurry here. It all happened really quickly, and it happened at a very busy time. I was just about to leave on the annual family trip to the lake for a week, but I think I have the sequence of events in the correct order. So I got contacted by a company that was going to offer me a 3-month contract. Not great. I mean, it took almost 6 months before I got this call, but apparently the contract was most likely to extend into 2026 and maybe even beyond. Who knows? It could have converted to full-time employment. Who knows? But it definitely was a pay cut. But better than nothing. So I did that interview, and it was an interview with the manager. Super nice guy, super cool. However, that interview was pretty awkward. There was lots of uncomfortable silence, so at times I kind of drove the interview, which was interesting. And when I was done, I told my wife that I'm not going to get the job. That was not a great interview. So I kind of forgot about it. Didn't get my hopes up or anything. And then just a couple days later, I think it was, shortly after that, I got contacted by a hospital that wanted to do an interview. Now, that was exciting because that was what I wanted to get into. So my previous role was medical insurance stuff. So I thought maybe I could go deeper into the medical field. Maybe it would be more stable. I don't know. So anytime I came across a hospital or medical related company, I took note of it and applied. So I was pretty excited about this one. I did the interview. It also was with the manager. He was super cool. The interview went really well, so I was optimistic that I would get a second interview. However, I had to leave for a week. So it was going to be a little bit before I found out about either of these companies. I kind of had mixed feelings going into vacation. Midway through the vacation, shockingly, the company that was offering the contract emailed me, wanted to do a second interview. So I told him I could do it there, but I was on vacation, pretty much in the middle of nowhere, not great internet. I could do it, but if they wanted to wait till Monday, it'd probably be better. So they waited till Monday. I get back, I do the second interview. This one was a technical interview, and it didn't go great. So technical interviews where they ask you like definitions of things. What is the difference between this thing in this language and this thing in this language? Yeah, I don't do great. So there was a couple of them that I didn't know. And again, after that interview, I just kind of figured it wasn't going to happen. However, I got a call from my recruiter, and he was asking me how the interview went, and I kind of lied because I'm not going to say it didn't go well. But I was like, yeah, it went all right. And he asked me a couple more questions about it, and midway through he stops and he says, well, look, I'm not going to beleaguer this. They want to make you an offer. Now, I was still waiting to hear back from the hospital position to see if I was going to move on to a second interview. But at the same time, I didn't want to lose this because it was something. So I decided to kind of buy some time. I asked him if he wouldn't mind sending me the details through email so I could read them and then get back to him. And as soon as I got off the phone, I emailed the hospital and asked them if they had decided who they were going to go forward with for a second interview. And I waited and no response. So finally, I decided I have to take this contract. I could end up losing both if I don't. So I accepted the offer. I had the contract job. However, like 2 hours after I had agreed to the contract, the hospital got back to me. They wanted to do a second interview. So the next day I did a second interview there. This one was just a interview meeting the team. And when I got in the interview, they informed me that it was actually half technical and half behavioral. So I was kind of freaking out. But this interview was the kind of technical interviews that I love. They were just asking me, what kind of problems have you dealt with in the past and how did you deal with them? And I could tell war stories from my previous role for hours and hours. I love telling those stories. And there was a few times that I had some of the team members like cracking up laughing in the interview. It was super comfortable and just amazing. I was pretty sure that I probably was going to get the job. However, days went by and I didn't hear anything from them. And I was kind of trying to delay as much as I could with this contract job. I didn't want them to do any work or spend money on me just to have me say, sorry, I got another offer. So I was kind of dragging my feet on the paperwork and trying to delay them sending out equipment. At one point, I asked the recruiter if the team wouldn't mind pushing my start date out by 1 week, just so I can get everything squared away at home before I jump back into work, but they couldn't do it. So yeah, I ended up receiving my equipment, and it was just days before my start date. I heard back from the hospital. They were going to make an offer, and it was actually really good pay, working with software that would be amazing to be on my resume. And now I felt really bad. I wasn't sure what it would be like to try and do 2 jobs at once, and I would feel guilty the whole time. Yeah. So I started the contract job. It was the most chill company I've ever worked for. Super nice people. And it was really easy to stand out there, because usually they just kind of make stuff work. But I had some time because I was onboarding, so I improved their code and stuff, gave them something that was nice and easy to reuse. And it was actually such a light, laid-back work environment. I thought, well, maybe I could do both without compromising the work that I'm doing for them. However, the very first day at the other job, I could not. There was no way I could do 2. I was so busy from day 1. So halfway through the day, I emailed the manager of the job that offered the contract Super nervous. I messaged him. I didn't email him. I messaged him because he was away. I told him that I got another offer, and if he wanted to talk to me in person, let me know. Half an hour later, he was like, hey, are you available? So I got on the call, and the first thing he did was, congratulations, man, which was wild because I really didn't want to burn any bridges. And by the end of that, he was saying, you know what? If for some reason this other job doesn't work out, reach out to me. Whatever I have, if it's contract or a full-time position, I'll give it to you. Super cool guy. So I definitely have his contact info just in case I need it in the future. And yeah, ever since then I've been just working crazy hard, and it's super fun. So now the watch piece of all of this. Because I have a job again, like some of you mentioned, I fully agree. There may need to be a celebratory watch in the future. However, I have no idea what in the world watch I would want right now. I've been looking at vintage pieces again on eBay, but the vintage pieces that I own are kind of a variety of aesthetic. So most of these that I'm seeing are covered by what I already own. Yeah. So if any of you have suggestions of any kind, I love seeing what you guys put forth in the comments. In the past, it's always been crazy stuff that I wouldn't have thought of at all, or pieces that I hadn't even heard of. So we can have a conversation there. It may be a little bit. I have to kind of fill up my account again after being off work for so long, but it would definitely be good to have a celebratory piece. Thanks for watching.